Hey, my name's Dylan, and this is my digital narrative. To start off this project, I'd like to give you a little bit of background information about my life. I grew up in South Central Pennsylvania, and aside from being away at school, this is where I still call home. My family consists of my mom, dad, older sister, and my dog, named Pepsi. My mom is an artist, and my dad, a graphic web designer. My sister is a licensed professional counselor, but spends the majority of her time raising her daughter. And this is my girlfriend, Lauren. She's kind of a big part of my life, too. For fun, I enjoy hiking, fishing, photography, going to the beach, paintballing, and an occasional trip to the arcade with my girlfriend. I also love the snow and Pirates baseball. Go Bucks! Motivated, compassionate, inspired, and faithful were all words that my parents used to describe me. Now let's move on to the more specific aspects of this assignment, addressing 4 of my different group membership identities. Growing up, I never really asked myself, who am I? I've always known that I had various different identities, but I never explored these identities beyond the surface level. Throughout this project, I hope to better answer this question. As author Jack Kornfield said, we awaken most easily to the mystery of life through our weakest side, the areas of our greatest strength, where we are the most competent and clearest, tend to keep us away from that mystery. Let's begin with social class. This past summer, I had the opportunity to travel from Hanover, Pennsylvania, all the way to a small town in Mexico called El Cerrillo. Upon arriving in Mexico, I observed extreme poverty and tremendous wealth, all within a few blocks of one another. This was like nothing else I had ever experienced. I found myself feeling sad and frustrated at the same time. Never before had I been so aware of my social class and just how much I took for granted. With limited access to clean water, bathrooms, showers, and a clean living space, I quickly began to realize that this was a reality for most people living in this town. We had to make do with what little we had, quickly becoming very resourceful in the process. I, along with other members of my church, began to question just how long we could live in these conditions. For the longest time, I could not figure out how people living with next to nothing could be so happy, selfless, and full of energy. It blew my mind how such an impoverished town could be so full of such compassionate individuals with the most beautiful and genuine smiles. I was so focused on looking for ways that I could lend a helping hand that, at first, I missed just how much the community of El Cerrillo was helping me. This was, without a doubt, an experience that I'll cherish for the rest of my life. Now, let's move on to gender. Growing up, I never remember there being a whole lot of discussion in my family regarding the differences between men and women. Since both of my parents have spent a large part of their careers as self-employers, I think it was sometimes easy for me to miss these important gender differences. Since I've been surrounded by females in both the workplace and in the classroom, it appeared to me that females were being given the same opportunities as males. For quite some time, the word privilege, as it relates to gender, carried very little meaning for me. Obviously, I was limiting my perceptions to my own personal experiences and missing the big picture. Of course, as I gained more real-life experience, I learned that men and women are not always treated equally, and there are, without a doubt, privileges that most men have that the majority of women do not. Take, for example, something as simple as mood swings or careless driving. As a male, I don't have to worry about anyone blaming me for these things based on my gender. More importantly, how about salaries? Women make only about 3/4 of what men make on every dollar. It's hard to believe that this is the reality that we live in. The privilege activity that we completed on the first day of class was extremely eye-opening for me. Moving forward, both personally and professionally, the challenge for me will be to stay consciously aware of the countless privileges that I have. I need to be mindful of how I use my privileges in circumstances when others may be at a disadvantage because of a lack of privilege. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about being an able-bodied individual. Unfortunately, it's oftentimes not until my abilities are limited or temporarily taken away from me that I stop and think about how truly blessed I am. Taking things for granted has been an easy habit for me to gain, but not such an easy one to break. It wasn't until I began practicing Taekwondo, a form of self-defense, that I really became aware of my own abilities and more attuned with my mind and body. More practice led to better physical coordination, as well as mental discipline. Training and strengthening my mind and body to work as one interconnected unit helped teach me to become more self-aware, resulting in a significant increase in my identity development as an able-bodied individual. This past summer, during my adolescent counseling course, my ability to cope with limited senses was put to the test on a ropes course. While working on a team activity, I was temporarily blinded using a bandana, and I had to rely heavily on my group members and my other senses to help me swing on a rope to safety in order to complete the challenge. This experience gave me a new appreciation for individuals who have to live with disabilities or limitations, especially considering my level of frustration and struggle over only a temporary impairment. Lastly, I'd like to discuss race. Growing up as a Caucasian in a predominantly white neighborhood, I paid very little attention to my skin color, and even less attention to the privileges I had because of it. Most of my life, my primary group of friends have also been white. That was until I met Brandon, who ended up being my roommate my junior year at Shippensburg University. Looking back, I feel that an important friendship and a great learning experience blossomed out of this unique living situation. While living with Brandon, I found myself questioning why so many clubs and organizations I was a part of were made up solely of white individuals. Perhaps this was simply because of a lack of diversity in the area I lived in, or maybe my community was somewhat unaccepting of different races. Regardless of the correct answer, I knew that this relationship, this friendship, was opening my eyes culturally and making me more sensitive to differences that I previously paid little to no attention to. As I've recently been able to spend more time in different cultures and around more diversity, many of my previous judgments have been challenged, and I've had to rethink how I view other individuals who are different from me. As I continue to place myself in unfamiliar situations and around different people and cultures, I hope and pray that my eyes will be opened even more, and that I will learn how to help others challenge their irrational thoughts, stereotypes, judgments, and prejudices as well. As I continue my counseling journey and begin to counsel others, my hope is that I am able to embrace my own identities while sensitively addressing and acknowledging my clients' unique identities and the important role that identity development plays in everyday life.